Hello, everyone. So, okay, Virgo, Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026. That date isn't random. Something pivotal happens then, and you need this information before that door closes. Subscribe and stay with me through every word. Time sensitive doesn't begin to describe what I'm about to tell you. This isn't one of those vague cosmic window messages where any time in a month qualifies. This is specific. This is precise. Tuesday, March 3rd marks an ending, a closing, a point of no return for something that's been available to you, something that's been possible for you, something that's been waiting for you to claim it. And after that date, after that specific Tuesday passes and Wednesday arrives, the window shuts, the opportunity vanishes. The choice you could have made becomes choice you can no longer make because the option itself ceases to exist. Not because you decided against it, but because time decided for you. Because your indecision became decision by default. Because waiting too long is its own form of choosing, even when it feels like not choosing. Here's what you need to grasp immediately. Before Tuesday means you have days, not weeks, not months, not I'll get to it eventually. If you're hearing this on Monday the 2nd, you have hours. If you're hearing this Sunday, you have a day and change. If you're hearing this the previous week, you have time, but not unlimited time, not enough time to procrastinate, not enough time to keep doing what you've been doing, which is thinking about it, considering it, weighing it, analyzing it, waiting for perfect clarity or perfect conditions or perfect courage that never arrives because perfect doesn't exist. And waiting for it is just fear disguised as conscientiousness is less than hash zero. 5 hash is greater than. The universe operates on schedules you don't control. Cosmic timing doesn't adjust to your comfort level. Opportunities don't wait indefinitely for you to feel ready. And Tuesday, March 3rd, something that's been open closes. Something that's been available becomes unavailable. Something that's been yours to choose becomes something you missed. Something you'll look back on and wonder what would have happened if you'd acted, if you'd chosen, if you'd been brave enough or fast enough or wise enough to recognize the window while it was still open. So let me tell you exactly what's at stake, exactly what you're about to lose if you don't move before that deadline, exactly why this message exists and why the urgency in my voice is real, is justified, is proportional to the actual consequences of missing this window. In the mechanics of cosmic deadlines, of temporal thresholds that determine what's possible versus what's impossible, certain moments function as hinges, as pivot points, as decision nodes where one choice leads to entirely different trajectory than another choice, where what you decide in that moment, in that window, literally determines which timeline you enter, which future becomes your actual lived experience versus which future remains theoretical possibility you wonder about but never experience because you didn't choose it when choosing was available. Tuesday, March 3rd is one of those hinges, one of those nodes, one of those moments where your choice or your failure to choose determines everything that follows is less than hash zero. 5 hash is greater than, and here's what's closing. Here's what you're about to lose access to if you don't act before that date. Opportunity to say yes to something you've been orbiting, circling, approaching without committing to, Relationship that's been in limbo, neither official nor definitively ended, waiting for you to claim it or release it. Job offer that's been extended with expiration date you've been pretending isn't firm. Creative project someone wants to collaborate on but needs answers soon. Investment opportunity with window that closes. Geographic move that becomes impossible after certain logistics expire. Reconciliation with person who's been holding door open but is about to close it permanently. Whatever your specific situation is, and you know what it is, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Even if you've been pretending you don't, even if you've been avoiding thinking about it directly, even if you've been hoping you'd have more time to decide, the common thread is this: someone or something has been waiting for your decision, has been available for your claiming, has been holding space for you to step into, and their patience, their availability, their willingness to wait, that ends Tuesday. After Tuesday, they move on. They choose someone else. They withdraw the offer. They close the door. They stop waiting, not because they don't care, not because they're trying to pressure you, but because they can't wait indefinitely, because their life has to continue, because holding space for you while you decide has cost them something and they've reached limit of what they're willing to pay for your indecision is less than has home. Zero hash is greater than. This reflection invites you to consider: what have you been avoiding deciding? And why does Tuesday feel like it might actually be the deadline you've been ignoring? Let's talk about what happens if you miss this deadline. If Tuesday comes and goes without you acting, without you choosing, without you claiming what's available before it becomes unavailable, first consequence is immediate. The thing closes. The person moves on. The offer withdraws. The window shuts. Whatever was possible on Monday is impossible on Wednesday. And that immediate loss, that sudden unavailability, hits differently than gradual fade, hits harder than slow decline. Because you go from, I could have this if I wanted it, to I can no longer have this regardless of whether I want it in span of 24 hours. And that shift from empowered position of choosing to powerless position of having lost choice through failing to exercise it. That's brutal awakening to how cosmic timing actually works, to how opportunities don't wait forever, to how I'll do it later sometimes becomes I'll never get to do it because later arrived and opportunity left. Second consequence is longer term: regret. The particular kind of regret that comes not from making wrong choice, but from making no choice, from letting fear or uncertainty or perfectionism prevent you from choosing anything, from being so afraid of choosing wrong that you effectively chose wrong by default through your paralysis. And this regret sits different than regret from bad choice. Bad choice teaches. Bad choice creates learning. Bad choice gives you something to process, to understand, to integrate. But no choice. Choice you didn't make because you were too scared or too cautious or too convinced you needed more time. That creates regret. That's harder to process because you never got the experience. Never got to learn whether it would have been right or wrong. Never got closure. Just got permanent wondering about what would have happened if you'd been brave enough to choose when choosing was possible. Third consequence is pattern reinforcement. Missing this deadline because you were too afraid to decide teaches your system that fear prevents action, that uncertainty justifies inaction, that Waiting is safer than choosing, even though waiting is its own choice with its own consequences. And once you reinforce that pattern once, it becomes stronger, becomes more likely to repeat. Next time opportunity appears, becomes your default response to anything that requires courage or commitment or risk, until you've built entire life around avoiding decisions, around staying in limbo, around keeping all options theoretically open while never actualizing any of them. And that's not freedom. That's not wisdom. That's prison built from fear, where the bars are your own refusal to commit to anything real, because real things can fail, can disappoint, can turn out differently than you hoped. Fourth consequence is opportunity cost that's invisible until it's too late. What you don't choose before Tuesday might have been thing that led to 10 other things that opened doors you can't even see yet, that connected you to people or experiences or possibilities that only become available through choosing this first thing is less than has home. Zero hash is greater than. By not choosing, you lose not just the immediate opportunity, but the entire branching path of what that opportunity would have made possible. And you never know what you lost because you never entered that timeline. You never saw where that choice would have led. You just stayed in timeline of not choosing, of playing safe, of avoiding risk. And that timeline has its own consequences, its own losses, its own slow accumulation of might have beens that haunt you precisely because you'll never know whether they would have been right or wrong. You just know you didn't find out because you weren't brave enough to try. This reflection invites you to consider which consequence scares you most, and is that fear strong enough to motivate action before Tuesday? Now, let me tell you what happens if you do act before Tuesday. If you make the choice, if you claim the opportunity, if you say yes to what's been waiting for, your yes or no to what's been needing, your clear no, so everyone can move forward with clarity instead of staying stuck in ambiguous limbo that serves no one. First benefit is immediate relief. The decision is made, the uncertainty ends. The pressure of having to decide releases because you decided, and regardless of whether decision proves right or wrong long term, in the immediate moment there's relief in having chosen, in no longer carrying weight of unmade decision, in moving from paralysis into action, even if action is scary, even if action means stepping into unknown, because known of indecision is its own suffering, is its own cage. And taking action breaks that cage open, creates movement, creates momentum, creates a sense of agency that comes from choosing rather than being chosen for through failure to choose. Second benefit is self-trust. Acting before deadline teaches your system that you're capable of making decisions under pressure, capable of choosing even without perfect information, capable of committing even when outcome is uncertain. And this self-trust compounds. This confidence in your decision-making ability grows each time you practice it, each time you choose despite fear, each time you act despite uncertainty, until eventually you're someone who doesn't get paralyzed by choices, doesn't freeze when decisions are required, doesn't need months to deliberate what could be decided in days because you trust yourself to handle consequences regardless of which way things go. You trust that you'll adapt, you'll learn, you'll make it work, or you'll adjust course if it doesn't work, but either way you'll be fine because you've proven to yourself repeatedly that choosing doesn't destroy you, that acting doesn't devastate you, that committing doesn't trap you in situations you can't escape. Third benefit is the actual outcome of whatever you're choosing. Maybe it's relationship that becomes beautiful partnership. Maybe it's job that becomes fulfilling career. Maybe it's move that becomes home you've been searching for. Maybe it's creative project that becomes proudest accomplishment. Maybe it's reconciliation that heals old wound and creates new foundation. You don't know yet what the outcome will be, and you can't know until you choose and live with choice long enough for consequences to reveal themselves. But the possibility of positive outcome only exists if you choose before window closes, only exists if you act before Tuesday, only exists if you're brave enough to say yes to unknown instead of staying in known of not choosing is less than hash zero. 5 hash is greater than. Fourth benefit is opening doors you can't see yet, accessing timeline branches that only become available through this choice. Maybe choosing this thing leads to meeting person who becomes crucial in your life. Maybe it leads to discovering talent you didn't know you had. Maybe it leads to location where everything else falls into place. Maybe it leads to a network that provides next 10 opportunities. You can't see these downstream effects from where you're standing now. Can't predict what choosing creates beyond immediate choice itself, but that's part of what makes choosing an act of faith, an act of trust that life is conspiring for you rather than against you, that opportunities lead to more opportunities when you're brave enough to take them. This reflection invites you to consider what's the best possible outcome if you choose before Tuesday, and is that possibility worth the risk? Let me be specific about what you need to do before Tuesday arrives. First, get clear on what the choice actually is. Strip away all the noise, all the complexity, all the, but what about this and but what if that, thinking that's been keeping you paralyzed. What's the actual decision at its core? Yes or no, stay or go, accept or decline, commit or release. Clarify the essential question, because once you clarify it, the answer often becomes obvious, becomes something you've known all along, but have been avoiding acknowledging, because acknowledging means having to act. Second, examine what's actually stopping you. Is it legitimate concern about compatibility, about logistics, about practical matters that genuinely need resolution? Or is it fear disguised as practical concern? Is it unworthiness pretending to be caution? Is it past trauma making you afraid of future possibility that doesn't actually resemble past pain except in your projection? Because if it's the latter, if what's stopping you is fear rather than wisdom, then fear needs to be acknowledged as fear, needs to be seen clearly rather than being allowed to masquerade as reason. And once you see it clearly, you can choose whether to let it control you or whether to act despite it. Third, consult with yourself at different time frames. Imagine yourself next week if you didn't choose before Tuesday. How do you feel? Relieved or regretful? Now imagine yourself 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. Looking back at this moment, at this choice you had to make before Tuesday, does future you wish current you had been braver, had acted, had chosen? Or does future you feel grateful that current you protected them by not choosing? Your future self has wisdom, current self doesn't have. And while you can't know future with certainty, you can feel into which choice future you would honor versus which choice future you would regret. Fourth, and this is crucial, make the decision before Monday night if possible. Don't wait until Tuesday morning. Don't cut it that close. Give yourself buffer. Give yourself time to act on decision without being rushed, without being under deadline pressure that might cause mistakes, without having to scramble because you waited until a last possible moment is less than has home. Zero hash is greater than. Decide this weekend if you're hearing this with time to spare. Decide today if today is Monday. Decide now if now is already Tuesday morning and you're cutting it dangerously close to losing the option entirely. Fifth, once you decide, act immediately. Don't decide and then wait to implement. Don't choose and then second guess. Don't commit and then let fear talk you back out. Make the call, send the message, accept the offer. Book the flight, have the conversation, take the step that makes the decision real, that converts internal choice into external action. Because until decision becomes action, it's not real decision, it's just thought, just intention, just possibility that can evaporate if you give it time to evaporate. This reflection invites you to consider: what's your first action step if you decide to act before Tuesday? And here's the final thing you need to understand about Tuesday, March 3rd, and what it represents. This deadline isn't punishment, isn't universe being cruel or arbitrary or testing you unfairly. This deadline is gift. This deadline is clarity. This deadline is the fire that forces decision you've been avoiding, that eliminates option to keep waffling indefinitely, that makes you choose when your pattern has been to avoid choosing, that creates urgency where your tendency has been toward endless deliberation. Without deadline, you'd keep doing what you've been doing, thinking about it, considering it, weighing it, waiting for perfect clarity that never comes. And meanwhile, life passes, time passes. Other opportunities come and go while you're still stuck on this one, still paralyzed by this choice, still unable to commit because commitment feels scary. The deadline ends that. The deadline forces your hand. The deadline says, choose now or lose the option to choose. And while that might feel harsh, might feel pressuring, it's actually liberation. It's actually kindness. Because being forced to choose is sometimes exactly what we need to break through our own patterns of avoidance, our own habits of indecision, our own fears that keep us stuck in lives smaller than the lives we could be living if we were brave enough to choose bigger possibilities when they present themselves. So thank the deadline. Thank Tuesday for creating urgency. Thank the person or situation giving you until that date for being clear about their limits, their boundaries, their unwillingness to wait indefinitely. And then use that deadline as catalyst. Use it as motivation. Use it as the fire under you that finally gets you to move, to choose, to act on what you've known for weeks or months you needed to act on, but kept postponing. Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026, that's your deadline. That's your window closing. That's your last chance to choose what's been waiting for your choice. Don't miss it. Don't let Tuesday pass without acting. Don't let this opportunity become another regret, another I should have, another what if that haunts you. Choose, act, claim what's yours before it stops being available to claim. You have days. Use them. Decide now. Act immediately. Before Tuesday closes, what Monday could still open. The clock is running. The deadline is real. Your choice matters. Make it before it's too late.